Our final speaker for this morning's session is Al Matos. Al earned his bachelor's and master's degrees both in electrical engineering as well as an MBA, all here in New Jersey at Fairleigh Dickinson University. He began his career with PSE&G, the Public Service Electric and Gas Company, in 1981, working as part of the engineering team for the Hope Creek Nuclear Power Plant. In 1997, he was chosen as the general manager for strategic operations for PSEG Americas, a subsidiary that focuses on Latin America. In 2002, Al was promoted to vice president for distribution and performance, where he managed a portfolio of operating electric distribution companies in South America. In 2008, Al was named vice president for Renewables and Energy Solutions. In this position, he helps the utility explore new opportunities in the renewable energy and energy efficiency markets. His responsibilities include developing solar, energy efficiency, and other renewable projects to help meet the New Jersey Energy Master Plan objectives. Please join me in welcoming Al Matos.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and I hope that I can entertain you for the next 30 minutes. I understand I'm the last speaker of this series, so hopefully you're ready to hear some interesting information regarding the state of the energy in mid-Atlantic states. Make sure I get these buttons right. Very good. That's an interesting picture that you see, which we'll talk about at the end of the presentation. That's one of our solar farms that we commissioned late in December. It's actually the Kearney landfill project, 3 megawatts of solar that we built on a landfill in Kearney, which was just commissioned at the end of third week, just before Christmas time. Beautiful view of the New York skyline in the background, and the nice heavy foundations to make sure that the settling of the landfills doesn't create a problem in the future. But we're here to talk about the outlook of energy demand in New Jersey. Energy, electricity, and gas represents a contrasting picture here. We see in this chart, as you can see, the 2011 PJM projection of energy, of electricity, compared to 2008, you see it's lower. And that's because, as we can guess, the cost of energy, or the consumption of energy, is very highly tied to the state's economy. We are in a great recession. The nation is in a great recession. So as we look at some of these other curves that I'll show you, this here shows the, keep looking to my sides. This shows the demand, the outlook demand for natural gas. And we start to see a clear picture of electricity and gas. The demand for gas as well has come down, but we also know that the price of gas has come down. If we look at the next slide, which is the spot price of the Henry Hub, you see that dramatic, sharp decline in gas prices. So what happened? Economics 101. Decrease in demand caused by the Great Recession. We as consumers are using less gas, less electricity. The recovery is projected to be long and slow. Also, I would say that our experience has been that as the economy does recover, the use of electricity and gas lags behind. We never really get to that point where we were prior to the recession. It takes a long time to get there. And why is that? People get used to doing with less. So as you turn your thermostats down to conserve and to save energy, because you may have lost your job, you find that when you do have a job, that you can live without that 70-degree thermostat set point. It takes a while for you to get back to that point. So that's going to lag behind. Increase in supply. This is really what happened, right? Shale Gas. That's a game changer. Now I've been around long enough to know that things of this nature has happened in the past where game changers have occurred, and over time, they may have disappeared. I don't know if that's the case here. But today, looking at Shale Gas, it is a game changer. It's setting prices much lower than we ever expected for gas, and therefore the price of electricity will follow. Look at the impact on the Mid-Atlantic region. Significantly low gas prices. No one would have imagined in 2008 that we would be at the Henry Hub price that I showed you before. It would have been something out of this world to think that those would be the prices today. Will it be sustainable? Projections are that gas prices will remain low for a long time. That assumption is based on shale gas continuing to be developed and continue to be commercialized. But as we know from the past, those type of game changers at times have not panned out to be game changers. The challenges that that presents to us from an energy efficiency and renewable standpoint is that this game changer, which is producing low gas prices and low cost of traditional electricity, is putting a lot of pressure on new types of energy sources, such as renewables or energy efficiency. But all these states in the Mid-Atlantic region have an RPS requirement, a renewable portfolio standard requirement, to achieve certain targets in energy efficiency and renewables. A lot of these long-term policies have been in place for several years now, continue to provide subsidies such as SRECs in solar or normal RECs, renewable energy credits, cash incentives, rebates, financing, as well as utility programs. These are all forms of subsidies that policymakers have allowed to occur in order for the society to meet its objectives in energy efficiency and renewables. Solar, as we know, is a high cost of energy, much more expensive than the traditional forms of energy. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. Policymakers have deemed that we should do it, we should continue to do it. But it does require a subsidy, either in SREC form, cash incentives, financing, or some type of utility investment. But given the price of electricity these days, as it continues to come down due to the game changer of shale gas, we see that that's putting a lot of pressure on continuing these type of programs in order to meet the state policy objectives. Let's take a look at New Jersey, which I'm most familiar with. We have a requirement to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases produced in the state. That's a requirement that the state has. We must increase the amount of renewable energy in order to meet the Energy Master Plan objectives. I remind you that the Energy Master Plan objectives is not a legal document from the standpoint that mandates those targets. Okay? It is a guideline that the state issues. And based on those guidelines, either legislation or regulation will be built upon. PSE&G has decided that we want to help the state in achieving those targets in the Energy Master Plan. So how do we get there? Energy Master Plan talks about solar, renewables, combining power, energy efficiency. A lot of focus has been placed on solar the past several years, even today. New Jersey has taken a very diversified approach to its energy policy. We started with rebates, for those of you that remember 10 years ago in the solar world. We now have long-term contracts and loans in the solar world. And we have direct utility investments in solar, as well as energy efficiency. Those are all forms of subsidies that policymakers have deemed is necessary in order for us to continue and meet the state objectives in the Energy Master Plan. Balancing ratepayer cost with the policy of achieving Energy Master Plan objectives is key. And we have to do a very good job in balancing that, because at the end of the day, the ratepayers, our PSEG customers, for example, are the ones who are paying for the good of society. We all benefit from clean air, solar, less cost and energy efficiency. So the value of doing and achieving the Energy Master Plan needs to outweigh the cost that the ratepayers are paying. Here we have an example of what I believe to be a success story with solar power. You see the bar charts starting from 2001 with the amount of solar that was installed in the state. Today, New Jersey is number 2, second only to California in total solar capacity installed. Now, since I was a former athletic person in my college days, I used to wrestle. I would say that I don't like being second. So I like to say that we're number 1 in the nation on a per square mile basis, which is fast. So you see the amount of solar that's been built, an enormous amount, funded in part by ratepayers, providing either some form of rebate or a long-term contract or a direct utility investment. But that's created an enormous amount of jobs and economic goodwill in the state. If we look at some of the PSEG Solar programs as an example, okay, we have received from the Board of Public Utilities, as a regulated entity, we have programs that are approved by the state through the Board of Public Utilities. And back in 2009, we received approval to invest over just about $515 million to install 80 megawatts of solar. When I say install, I meant the utility directly investing in that solar, owning and operating those solar plants, as you saw the picture, very first slide of the Kearney Meadowlands. That provides a track record of predictable solar capacity being built, as well as predictable SRECs that are generated and then sold into the market. So far, we have 58 megawatts of solar capacity that's been commissioned under the Solar for All program. Our target is 80 megawatts. We should have that completed by the end of this year. We have a solar loan program, which is not a program where the utility then owns the assets or the plant, but you do. You being the individual residential homeowner, or you being the business owner, or nonprofit center, or school. If you want to own solar yourself, you can then apply for this loan, and typically it would pay for about 50% of the total capital required to build that solar. The repayment terms are pretty easy, 10 or 15 years, and you pay back at your choosing with SRECs or cash. All of our applications and all of our loans that we've handed out, I don't believe there's a single borrower that's paying back in cash. They're paying back using the credits that's generated by their system. They enjoy the net metering application of electricity that solar plant produces, and then they pay us repayment with the SRECs, which has a guaranteed price, floor price, of whatever you end up with at the closing date. It's a tiered approach for the next 10 or 15 years. That removes the uncertainty of SREC prices from you and places it back on the utility and the ratepayers. The ratepayers need to benefit from that somehow, and the way they benefit from that is because the more solar we have, the more SRECs get generated. Supply and demand then dictates that the price of the SREC will come down. And as we've seen, that is the case, from an all-time high of 600 plus to about 170 or 200 today. Ratepayers pay that. If it was at 600, they pay that. Ratepayers prefer to pay 200 than 600, as they were several months ago. So ratepayers benefit from having more SRECs in the market and having that price come down. The trick is to balance that price coming down with the needs of developers and installers to install solar and what they need and customers need to build solar. So there's a balance there. If the SREC price comes down too far, it doesn't provide enough of a subsidy in order to build solar, and then solar doesn't get built, SREC prices go back up and waits for developers and people to build solar again. So you have this cycle of boom bust. Unless you have somehow you're able to manage that market in a way that is able to stabilize the prices, which I don't know how we do that. Here's some examples of solar for all again. Again, solar for all is 80 megawatts, direct investment by the utility. We have approximately 60 megawatts. We were finishing this program this year. And the focus of the solar for all, when we first did it, was number one, not to build an entire organization within PSEG, within my group, of solar engineers and solar professionals and have them build this. Our commitment was to go out to the market and use the solar experts in the market to build our systems on a competitive basis. So as we identify sites, either our own PSEG sites or third-party sites, as you saw before in Kearney landfill, we then go out and hire through a competitive RFP process to get the best price and best quality to build that system. We have 19 solar plants across the state making up at least half of that 60 megawatts that's already in the ground. 19 specific generating sites around the state. All of those being built by about 15 what I call solar EPC contractors, EPC firms, EPC experts, solar experts. Now you can think about the RFP process that we had to go through every time we do one of these things. It's time consuming, but we believe it's value provided back to the ratepayers, so the ratepayers get to build solar through PSEG at the least cost possible. So here we see some examples. The picture on the top right is actually one of our pieces of property. It's a brownfield, which was a remediated gas site that we own, that we still own, but it was cleaned up. It's considered a brownfield. You can see that's in the residential area. But one of the nice things to do now, instead of having this remediated brownfield site empty, now it's full of grayish, bluish solar panels overlooking the residential homes that are there now. You see on the lower left, the Sacred Heart Basilica Cathedral back in Newark. That's Barringer High School. We also place solar on the various schools, third-party sites. All grid connected, so the electricity goes back into the ratepayers. But the school gets a rental fee out of it. So we are paying the Board of Ed in Newark, Barringer High School, a rental fee for the use of that real estate, unlocking that value that the Board of Ed of Newark never had before. And you see the picture on the lower right-hand side, which is 50% of our Solar for All program, approximately 40 megawatts of the 80, where we're putting up approximately 180,000 individual solar units on 180,000 utility poles. We're about 120,000 currently completed, all operating extraordinarily well. We've gone through several storms just this past winter, for example. No panels came off. They've been up there since 2009 when we first started implementing, so they're working extremely well. They have a little microinverter built into it, and they have communication, so on a real-time basis, we know what each individual panel is doing. So we're building a 40 megawatt solar farm distributed across the state of New Jersey. I would guess probably one of the largest solar farms being built in the world. Our loan program also provides opportunities for large customers as well as residential. Here we see some pictures of some pretty large customers. The one on the lower left is a very prominent financial institution off the turnpike who use our loan program to build carports as well as roof-mounted systems. You see some other pictures on the top right. Again, that's a medical facility in central Jersey. They had a lot of land space, and they had decided to put up some solar. And then you see the one on the lower left. That's a roof-mounted system, 1.3 megawatts, I believe, of solar panels on a roof on a very large warehouse-type company. Again, for these third-party sites, they own the system, they use our financing, and pay us back with the SREC price. The current market in solar in New Jersey. The market, as I said before, has been very, very hot. Recently, because of the SREC prices, there's some questions about whether it will continue. And that's problematic because obviously there's jobs at stake. So on one hand, we want to make sure that jobs continue. We want to make sure that we continue to meet the Energy Master Plan objectives, but we also want to make sure that our ratepayers are paying a fair value for that subsidy. We also have to be careful with the boom-bust cycle. I'm a true believer in the free market and open markets. And I know, based on prior jobs I've had internationally, prior to coming to PSEG in 2008, that boom-bust cycles hurts consumers. Better is something that's more steady and more predictable. But whenever you get into a boom-bust cycle of $140, $170 SREC today, and then a month from now, or 2 months from now, or 6 months from now, back to 600, ratepayers lose. They end up paying more than they should. So we as a society have to make sure that while we're trying to achieve the Energy Master Plan objectives and the solar objectives, that we also make sure that our ratepayers are not being overly burdened with additional subsidies. That's a very tough balance. And at being in the utility business and being in the solar business, now that we own solar, it's tough to say that. I'd rather say, let's build more solar until there's no more blacktop available, that it's all covered with solar. Environmentally, that would be great, but at what cost? So we have to balance that. The utility programs help do that, and the utilities, the 4 electric utilities in New Jersey, either had loan programs or some form of long-term contracts, which has now ended. We don't know what the future of that will be going forward, but we do know that the state is highly committed to building solar and maintaining the solar industry. How we do that is something that the policymakers need to figure out, which they've been doing for the past, I guess, 6 months or so. But that has to continue, and we have to find an answer. This is a little bit of what I said before regarding the solar loan and Solar for All extension. PSEG continues to be committed to the solar industry. We continue to look for ways of expanding our solar programs, but we recognize that with the abundance of solar that currently is in the field today, that we have to throttle that amount of solar that we want to do in order to ensure that we don't create a boom-bust cycle. Utility solar is a transparent way of implementing solar. Our books are open. We're a publicly owned, stockholder-owned company, but we are a regulated company, and the regulators have every right to take a look at everything we did. So we're highly transparent. Everything's there for everybody to see, or for the regulators to see. So, and they tell us, or they dictate the amount of solar that we will then go forward with. One of the areas that society keeps telling us is that while solar is being built, is being built in places that are can afford it. How about the underserved markets? So what we did as a utility, because again we have to provide value back to the ratepayer, is that we focus or try to focus on those underserved markets. School systems, landfills, brownfields, the PSEG properties that were remediated some time ago and just were sitting there. That's value that goes back to the ratepayer. Furthermore, all the electricity that we generate from our solar, all the capacity payments that we get from PJM, that we bid into PJM because of solar, the tax credits, and the value of the SRECs that we monetize on an auction basis, that value all goes back to ratepayers. The PSEG doesn't keep any of that. Yes, we do make a regulated rate of return on the asset, just as we do when we install a substation, a pipe, a wire. It's a regulated industry. So we make a regulated rate of return on that asset, but the value that's created all has to flow back to the ratepayer, offsetting the cost of what the ratepayer ended up paying from a subsidy standpoint. That was a little bit about solar. Let me just turn real quick into energy efficiency, because that's the other half of my department, which we focus on quite a bit. So the Office of Clean Energy has a number of programs to provide its citizens of New Jersey energy efficiency. I'm always amazed to hear that if I take a poll, how many of us in this room has actually applied to do a simple home energy audit for $75 that the Board of Public Utilities can provide. Typically, it's very few. I'm not going to ask now because I don't want to embarrass people. But all of us should be calling on the BPU, the Office of Clean Energy, to do that audit. $75, they come in, they do a test, and they'll identify what areas of your home require some fixing up, some reinforcement on energy efficiency. It's a simple thing. They also run a number of other programs for residentials, businesses, and some large customers. These are all good things. You see the list of program areas that is available. A lot of people don't even know about it and don't take advantage of it. We should be preachers of these programs. We should be telling everyone about these programs. In the utility, we sort of supplement and complement what the Office of Clean Energy is doing. So from the utility standpoint, we also have some energy efficiency programs that complement what the Office of Clean Energy, the BPU, already has in place. Again, a lot of that happens to be in the area of underserved markets. Here in this slide, you see that, again, the greatest return on investment is the cleanest kilowatt is the one not used. That's an old statement that we used to have back around 1990. But it's very true. I'm always amazed, being both in the solar and energy efficiency side, how many people want solar, invest in solar in their homes or businesses, but have never done an energy audit to see how much energy is leaking out their windows or their HVAC system's not working well. This is what we should do first. Energy efficiency is first. That's the low-hanging fruit. Obviously, the energy efficiency invests capital to improve infrastructure. It creates jobs, just as solar and other renewables does. It may not be as glorious as solar. You're probably in the basement working, not on top of the roof. But it's an important aspect of our entire energy chain. The biggest part I've seen with experience with people in businesses, they rather invest their expendable dollar in their core business, say you're a hospital, for example, rather buy another x-ray machine than replace that 30-year-old boiler. So there's a big market for replacing boilers, for replacing HVAC, for doing home audits. As we do that and invest in it, if the utility gets into that and does that, think about the free cash flow that then is freed up in that business to then better their business. So if you're a hospital and we come in and we invest in HVAC and heating systems and reduce their energy usage by 30%, that 30% cash flow they can then use for their core business because we made the initial investment. So we look at the urban enterprise zone, underserved markets. We look at cash or capital constrained segments such as a hospital. And we have some pilot programs. These are the programs that we currently have at PSE&G. Most of them are running out by the end of this year, and we hope to seek approval for additional extensions with the Board of Public Utilities. They've been very successful. The hospital program, last I checked, had 19 hospitals, 20 hospitals of the 35 that are in our area that is receiving benefits from this program, as well as the multifamily homes, residentials, many residentials that we've entered, done the home audit, but not only done the home audit and walked away, done the home audit, identified where the area needs are, and then have gone back to invest in those areas. Here's some pictures, again, not as glorious as perhaps some of the solar pictures, but this is energy efficiency. These are the type of things that are out there. This is not unique. This is common when we go out and look at businesses and homes. Here's some more pictures. Again, very common. These are not extraordinary pictures. This is the commonplace. This is what's out there. This past week, I asked my group to take a look at, see how we can have a study performed of the entire state, PSEG area, to see what the inventory really is out there of energy efficiency equipment. What is the average age? We hear that it's 20, 25 years. Let's get some facts and figures and really find out what is the market for energy efficiency in our PSEG service territory. Because if this is typical, I would say that market would be very huge, and there's a great opportunity to make these type of investments and reduce the overall cost of energy and overall usage of energy in our state. So we provide these programs. Here are some examples of some work being done. We reduced electricity and gas usage, saving so far about $30 million in the past 3 years of the work that we've done. And if you look at the savings, energy savings, real energy savings so far in the past, say, 2 years now, it's the equivalent if we had built a 32 megawatt base load unit running 24/7. So we've deferred that base load unit from occurring. Here's a case study of St. Peter's healthcare system. They did energy efficiency, almost $5 million worth of investment. PSEG paid it all up front. The hospital then pays back 20% over a 3-year period at 0% interest, using the cash flow that they now have due to the energy savings. So there's no net increase in their cost. And then after 3 years, it's gravy for them. And we upgraded some vital infrastructure. And then we did PSEG loan program. They put solar. They did it right. Energy efficiency and solar. And you can see that the total commitment to St. Peter's was just under $10 million between the energy efficiency investments and the solar loan. Remember, solar loan they're paying back through the SREC price. And their annual savings that they're benefiting from is $1 million a year in energy costs. Just to wrap up, energy efficiency is smart public policy. It's It's the first thing we should all be doing. And I know that after this presentation, you're all going to call up the Office of Clean Energy and apply for that home audit. It's easy, $75. We should all do it. Our PSEG programs assist those who need help the most. Hospitals was a classic example. They're community-based, provide societal good. They struggle with capital. So the last thing they're going to do is invest in energy efficiency, which they really do need an X-ray machine. So that's where the utility will step up, make those investments, save them money for the benefit of all ratepayers in the community. Lastly, I just want to touch upon something else that's in the Energy Master Plan, which really hasn't gotten a lot of play. Maybe it will in this conference. That's combined heat and power. Energy Master Plan calls for 1,500 megawatts of combined heat and power. Now, I have here since 2008 only 2.8 megawatts, but I believe that's wrong. Speaking with one of our CHP experts earlier today, there's more than that, but not enough. So we're looking, PSEG is now looking at maybe we can do something like we did with solar and jumpstart the CHP industry to get that moving again. Now I'm finding out a lot about the economics of CHP. It's a limited market. You need to have a customer that has a steam need. So both steam and electricity is generated on site. So that's something we're toying with, and I'll be happy to talk to anyone who provides some guidance as how they think we should, as a utility, provide a program, again, funded by ratepayers. So you have to be careful again about the cost and what the benefits are to ratepayers, on how we could accomplish such a thing on CHP. So I'll leave you with that thought, and questions later, right? Okay, great, thank you.